I guarantee there is no better use of your time than to watch this video right now. This is true if you're invested in crypto, equities, or even if you are just sitting all cash on the sidelines. I see a huge storm brewing in the global economy, and I want to share with you how I think risky assets like Bitcoin are going to be affected. Now, there is no telling how soon my predictions will come true, but I do know that I don't want to be the one left holding an empty bag when it's all said and done. And neither do you. The following information that I'm about to share is the product of careful attention to detail and, more importantly, my unique ability to filter out all of the bull that the corporate media and other idiots try to pollute our minds with. So for that, make sure you show me some love by smashing that like button. Make sure you hit subscribe, boom, bang on that notification bell. Comment anything that you want in the relevant sections. I appreciate it. Now, let's get into what they don't want you to know. Previously in this series on bull and bear markets, I told you that the recent history of the US stock market and index of the S&P. I revealed that the US Federal Reserve used their infinitely powerful balance sheet to pump the absolute out of the S&P after the 2008 housing crash caused the index to shed 55% in only a few months. I then posed a quick question to you. Would Bitcoin have anywhere near the valuation that it has today without the Federal Reserve doing their ultra aggressive monetary policy? I would say that the answer is a resounding no, especially because the Fed not only fired its overpowered printers at a collapsing market enough to make it recover, but then it just kept on printing money for close to a decade afterwards. Absolutely wild and crazy government that we have in the United States, guys. But I also want to show you another dimension of the Fed's intervention that totally convinces me that the Fed may be responsible for up to 80% of Bitcoin's value, and that Bitcoin may be close to giving that 80% back. So let's do this. The way that the US credit system works has the Federal Reserve at the top of all banks and businesses pulling all the strings. The puppet master, if you would. The Fed sets what it is called the federal funds rate. This rate basically determines what rate the banks can lend each other money and lend you money with. When the federal funds rate is high, then money is more expensive to borrow. And that's just for the banks. Imagine what it trickles down to you. Because the federal funds rate is essentially the rate that the big banks are borrowing money from the Federal Reserve. So obviously the end consumer, the retail interest rate is going to be much higher. This shows the growth of the economy because businesses and consumers don't want to have to pay a bunch of money on their notes in interest. This gets translated into less pools getting installed, less toys getting bought, less businesses getting opened, and generally less purchases in almost every other category. But when the Fed decides to go the other way and instead of throttling growth in the economy, they incentivize it by lowering the federal funds rate, well, that's when the economy tends to grow more rapidly. Businesses and consumers take more risk because more money becomes less expensive to borrow. Under lower interest rates, maybe mom and dad decide to build that deck or install that refreshing new pool in the backyard. After all, I only have to pay a few $100 in interest to a bank that will front me the full $70,000 to have the pool installed. Then I can basically be chilling in my brand new pool today for only the change in my pocket. Now, multiply that kind of purchase by every product in the entire market known to man. Suddenly, people aren't just getting new pools installed. They're buying new cars with all of the upgrades on them, fully loaded. That new expensive gaming PC, or even that new boob job. You name it, all at your fingertips. But it's not just consumer spending. Remember that. The growth effect compounds when businesses experience a huge increase in revenue and at the same time enjoy the lower cost of loans from the banks. So now they too are borrowing from the bank to expand their opportunities and their operations. Everything from expanding a fleet of new lawnmowers from just 5 to 20, which unlocks way more money for that business. Or scale out to big tech where now Microsoft can take out a jumbo loan to buy up entire businesses like Xbox, Skype, and countless others. That happened in the last bull market because it was almost free for Microsoft to finance those acquisitions. So now you see the effects of the Fed lowering interest rates. And that can put the pedal to the metal and turn a greedy, status-driven society like America into a boomtown in no time flat, all because borrowing costs are extremely low. I can have today, for pennies, what I would have had to work years and years for to have without a lower interest rate loan. Did I just blow your mind a little bit there? I know my mind was blown when I realized how that actually works. It's powerful, but it's also dangerous at the same time. Such is life. Think about it. People don't just buy cool stuff like cars and pool upgrades. No, people and businesses take advantage of low-cost credit to invest in higher risk assets than they normally would. Now, instead of investing with the safer names like Disney that you would already know and maybe they're dividend bearing, you might join into a little startup that they called Netflix, which is a little bit riskier, or take it even a step further and you might go out and say, hey, I like Bitcoin. Maybe I'm going to invest in this micro-cap company. And then what happens? It booms and you get rich. Then time goes on and rates get even lower. Then suddenly Wall Street is hot on a company called Tesla that is supposed to revolutionize the auto market. And then Tesla delivers on their promises and meets all the sales targets for years. By now, everybody has forgotten that the federal funds rate is close to zero and money is literally close to free to borrow. Then even more time goes by and Tesla is growing at 20% annually, but you hear about Bitcoin that is growing at 50% annually, and you and millions of others of decentralized investors throw caution to the wind and bet that your winning streak is far from over. Because all of that winning is because you're smart, right? Not because the Federal Reserve is run by a bunch of ultra-liberal cult members who bow to the theories of John Maynard Keynes as if it was handed down from the mountain to Moses himself, right? At a certain point, a market starts to develop a high risk for asset bubbles to emerge because everyone starts thinking that asset prices only go up. So that is the psychology that got us to where we are today. What is more important to remember for the next episode is this. The Fed has two giant bazookas that they can use to stimulate or slow the economy. In the last episode, I showed you that first bazooka. The Fed can wield its balance sheet to print dollars and buy up fixed rate assets that cause collapsing markets to recover. In this episode, I showed you the other bazooka. The Fed's also lowering interest rates to make borrowing money close to free. And from the summer of 2007 to 2009, the Fed did both of those aggressively, adding over $2 trillion worth of treasuries to their balance sheet in the process, and taking the federal funds rate from 5.25% all the way down to about 0.25%. Effectively telling Americans in just about a year that almost everything is essentially free. And they are fools if they don't spend and invest that money into risky assets. And it worked. But not only did it work to recover the economy after 2008, I think it wildly overvalued a lot of assets that are set to crash. So with that being said, where does the price of Bitcoin go from here? Well, you're gonna have to tune into the next episode for that. And if you like content like this, make sure you tune in and make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you hit subscribe. Boom! Bang on that notification bell. Comment anything that you want in the relevant sections. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for showing up to this video. I will see you in the next one. Have a good day, everyone.